Hi there, this is Teri from stampinmagic.com. Welcome back to my channel. Today's project is this lovely Christmas card. I used the beautiful Blizzard stamp set and the coordinating Blizzard Thinlits die. So let's get started. There's only a little stamping required for this card, so I'm going to start with that. I have blueberry bushel ink and my sentiment stamp, and I'm going to stamp on a large scrap of normal weight Whisper White card. I'm going to cut this out using one of the Stitched Shapes framelits, so I'm using the second largest oval. Then I have a scrap piece of balmy blue cardstock, and I'm going to cut out a mat to go underneath, and I'm using the third largest scalloped oval from the Layering Ovals framelits. Next I'm going to use balmy blue ink, and I'm going to use the little snow flurry stamp from the set, and I'm going to stamp all over the sentiment. And each time I'm going to stamp off first, so I get a lighter tone of ink. And then you can layer those two pieces together. And as always, I'm using Tombow multi-purpose adhesive to do this. This is usually my glue of choice. It gives you just a few seconds wiggle room just to get the placement exactly where you want it. I'm going to add some loops of silver metallic thread to the back of this sentiment panel, and to adhere them onto the panel I'm going to use Tear tape. I find this is the easiest and best way to do this. So I'm just adding strips of the Tear tape to the reverse, and then I'll take off the backing. I decided to add 4 coils of thread to the reverse, just so it shows more or less all the way round the panel. And all I do is take the end and wrap it around several fingers to create the coil, and then I just hold it in place and stick it down onto the Tear tape. And obviously the size of the coil depends on the number of fingers you use, so if you haven't done this before, just experiment and see what you like. And once the coil is stuck down onto the panel, you can just flip it over and make sure you like its placement. If you don't, it's quite easy to adjust it. Once you've completed the panel and you're happy with it, then just add some dimensionals onto the reverse. Now for the main panel for the front of the card, and I'm going to use the Blizzard Thinlits die. Now this die is just in one piece and it's covered in the most beautiful snowflakes. I have a piece of blueberry bushel cardstock, and I've cut this to the same height as the die, but just a little bit wider, so it will cover up the full width of my card front. I'm going to add some multi-purpose adhesive sheet to the reverse of this mat. This will make it much easier and much cleaner when I come to stick it to my silver foil. Now for cutting this die on the Big Shot, I found that I have to use the precision base plate. Now I don't like using this plate because it always bows my acrylic plates, but I found with this die you really need that hard surface to cut into to get the best results. So my sandwich for the Big Shot is the multi-purpose platform, the thin die adapter, then the precision base plate, followed by the cardstock and then the die on top and an acrylic plate on top of that. Now I've positioned the die onto the cardstock so there's an equal amount of cardstock showing on either side. Now the sandwich is quite tight, so it does take a second to get going, but it does go through nice and cleanly. Unfortunately, I've got the Big Shot on a plastic mat that goes all over the place, but I run it through and bring it straight back, and then I'm going to flip the acrylic plate. Now this helps reduce the bowing that I get with that precision base plate, so I always do this. So in total I run it through 4 times, forward and back, and then forward and back again. Once you're done, if you check the underside of your cardstock, you'll be able to see if it's cut through everything cleanly or not, and if it hasn't, you can run it through the Big Shot again. This design is so intricate that you need to be just a little bit careful when you remove the card from the die. So I'm going to use my die brush and I'm going to run it gently just over the top of that die, and this will just loosen the cardstock so it comes away a little easier. Now this die brush is our old design. I know it's been redesigned, but I'm not quite sure what the difference is, but either would work for this. And you can see some of the snowflakes have already come out. They'll just fall away as you remove the die. Now I'm going to push out all the remaining pieces, and those I'll save for another project. And then you're left with this beautiful snowflake panel. And we've still got the multi-purpose adhesive sheet on the reverse. I've cut a piece of silver foil to the same width as my blue cardstock, but just a little bit longer, so I've got an edge showing at the top and the bottom. And again, this is the same width as the width of my card base. I'm going to peel off the backing to the multi-purpose adhesive sheet and then position this onto the silver foil. Be careful when you peel the backing off that you don't tear any of those snowflake fronds. And this adhesive sheet is really quite forgiving. If you do stick it down and you've got it slightly out of position, as long as you haven't pressed it firmly in place yet, you can just lift it and reposition it. Once you have got it all stuck down, just check the snowflakes to make sure that there's no distortion. I did have one that was slightly out, so I'm just using the paper piercing tool just to lift that carefully off the foil and then reposition it. And see how pretty this is when it's complete. It's so beautiful. For my card base, I have half an A4 sheet of balmy blue cardstock, and I'm folding that in half. And then for the inside of the card, I'm going to use Blueberry Bushel ink and the little snowflake stamp from the set, and just stamp 2 of the corners of this Whisper White mat. And then I can add this panel to the inside of the card. Then I can add glue to the reverse of that front panel and position this onto the front of my card base. And I'm just using my grid paper to help me line up the top and bottom edges, so I've got an equal border at the top and the bottom. Now all that remains is to position the sentiment panel and finish that off. So I'm removing the backs from the dimensionals and adding it to the front of my card. Then I'm selecting 2 silver snowflakes that I've cut previously using this die, and I'm going to glue those onto the sentiment panel. And then I'll finish off just by adding a basic rhinestone to each of those snowflakes. And that's it. The card is finished. It doesn't take long at all, this one. And my original card, now the colours I used for this one were Pool Party and Night of Navy. And I've also made a third card, which are the same colours as the card I just created, but just in reverse. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Bye for now.